The Los Angeles Angels have the two best players in baseball right now, and yet they still suck. But before we start, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it really helps the growth. But anyway, back to the video. As of right now, we are about half a week into this season, and the Angels are losing more games than they can win. I mean, with three-time MVP Mike Trout and a once-in-a-generation type talent in Shohei Ohtani being on the same roster for the past 4 seasons, you'd expect them to be competing for championships and maybe even have one by now. Yet, this squad hasn't even reached the playoffs. Yeah, some could argue that Shohei Ohtani hadn't really been his full self those first 2 seasons, as he had spent most of it dealing with Tommy John, so he could really only bat. And Mike Trout had spent most of last season dealing with the right calf strain. But the problems with this organization go beyond that. And to find the source of the issue, we need to go back to where it all began. In the 2015 season, only a year removed from an ALDS appearance, the squad looked playoff bound, being led by a young Mike Trout, prime Cole Calhoun, aging Albert Pujols, and ace pitcher Garrett Richards. It seemed to go that in the beginning, the Angels had a record of 55-47 going to August, with the postseason spot in the grasp of their hands. But then, the team just collapsed in August with a terrible record of 10-19. Though, the bullpen did the best they could for the squad, helping them recover their record in September. And now, with 4 games left in October, all the Angels would need to do is win 3 of them to make the postseason. And after losing the first game 3-5 against Texas, Jared Weaver would go on to pitch a masterclass in Game 2, only allowing 1 run over 6 innings of work. But then it seemed as if a switch had flipped for both teams, as it became an absolute slugfest the next game. With the season on the line, the Angels would go into the 9th inning down 10-6. But then, the nearly impossible happened. The inning would begin with back-to-back bombs by Erick Aybar and Cole Calhoun. Following that up was Mike Trout, who would ground out to first base. Then Albert Pujols was next. He would hit a double to second base. And following him was David Murphy, who struck out swinging. And now, with the season on the line, it was CJ Cron's turn. He would single to center field, bringing in Pujols and putting the game at 9-10. David Freese was up, and he would do just that, hitting a single to left field. And now, CJ Cron's pitch runner, Cowgill, was on third base, and David Freese's pitch runner would now be on first base. Carlos Perez was up. He would also single, but this time to center field, bringing in Cowgill, putting Cowart on second base. It was Johnny Giovatella's time to shine. With the game tied 10-10 and a runner on second base, all he had to do was hit the ball. And he did. But that seemed to be all for naught, as ace Garrett Richards would choke the chances of a playoff berth away in the season finale to the Texas Rangers, who would go on to win the game 9-2. And after that fateful night, it seemed as if this organization was cursed. 2 years later, after a terrible 2016 campaign, the Angels would have another opportunity to clinch a postseason berth in 2017. This time, however, the Angels would have Gold Glove winning catcher Martin Maldonado behind the plate, and an Andrelton Simmons who finished 8th in MVP voting that year with a Gold Glove. With only a month of baseball left to play, the Angels were 1 game out of the last wildcard spot, and so all they would need was a strong September finish. And of course, they do what you expect at this point. That's right, fall apart again and finish the season 1 game under 500. Next, it was time for the winter meetings of 2017, where the hottest thing on the market was this big name prospect out of Japan being called the next Babe Ruth. Every team in the league was throwing offers at this guy, and yet he signed with the Los Angeles Angels of all teams. The main reason for this being that the Angels were one of very few teams who were going to let this star player, Shohei Ohtani, be a two-way player, which meant he got to hit as DH and pitch every 5 games. Going into the 2018 season, being Mike Scioscia's last, the team was full of talent, with additions Shohei Ohtani at DH and Justin Upton in his first full season with the squad, and multi-time All-Star Ian Kinsler starting at second base. But again, it didn't seem to matter how much talent they had on the field. It just didn't turn into wins, as they would go on to finish 4th in the AL West. And now, with longtime manager Mike Scioscia retiring, and big-time players like Martin Maldonado and Ian Kinsler's contract being up, it was time for a rebuild. The Angels decided to bring in manager Brad Ausmus, who was coming off of what most considered a failed tenure in Detroit. The Angels would give this man a 3-year contract and the keys to the organization. But then, on July 1st, in the middle of the season, Angels ace Tyler Skaggs would die unexpectedly, putting the team into a freefall. But besides the hiring of a new manager and the death of a star player, the season would be pretty unmemorable for the Angels, as they'd go on to win 8 less games than the previous year, with no signs of improvement. And then came 2020, one of the messiest years in MLB history, mainly due to the fact that they would be shut down by a pandemic. And though baseball gave it their best effort, they were only able to squeeze in 60 games that season. To add on to that, the Angels owner Art Moreno felt it was best to move on from Brad Ausmus after only 1 season, for the sole fact that there was a bigger name available in Joe Maddon, who was coming off of a World Series with the Cubs a few seasons prior. With this being the shortest season in MLB history, every game mattered 10 times more. And even with the league trying to help the lower level teams make the playoffs by expanding to a 16-team format, the Angels still failed to make it, finishing with a nearly league-low 26 wins that season. In 2021, it was finally Shohei Ohtani's time to shine, as he was finally able to pitch this season. The hype seemed to be worth it, as Ohtani would go on to lead the league in home runs and be the Angels' ace. So you would think, with Ohtani playing at his peak and being the MVP that season, that the Angels would be playoff contenders. But of course, they weren't, as the Angels' slow start and terrible finish was enough to hold them out of the playoffs and keep them in mediocrity. If that doesn't prove the Angels are cursed, then I don't know what will.